Yeah. So, and a lot of times it's difficult on the front end, right? Because I'm talking to a C-suite executive and they see this young kid with long hair and they're like, well, what the heck does he know, right? But it's when you put yourself in a mindset of being a business owner, which I have been before in a sense, um, is understanding, you are there to provide value for the rest of your employees, right? And so sometimes when I'm in that conversation, it's explaining it in a way that makes sense to them in their position. And so, for instance, you, Eric, are in a CEO position, and you want to provide value to not only the clients, but your employees, right? And so how do you do that? It's by bringing in more sales, bringing in more business. Well, how do you bring in more business? How do you bring in more sales? Well, it starts with marketing.
Today on The Claw, I spoke with Dakota Ward. He is an account executive with Liger Partners, and we talked about the difference between investing in the stock market and investing in your marketing, and how the two things are either the same or maybe very different. Tune in as we discuss what marketing executives need to understand before they pull their trigger on that next marketing spend. Welcome to The Claw, the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. I am joined today by a fellow Liger, Dakota Ward. Dakota, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, man. It's weird to be on this side of the table.
That's right, because you do the underbrush.
The underbrush, that's right.
You do it's like kind of between the ferns.
That's right. Yeah. It was either that or I would start the show brushing my hair.
Brushing your hair, yes. That is your signature thing. That is your signature thing. I think every time we're on a conversation with a customer, they're like, Dakota, he's the guy with the hair. I'm like,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's me.
And so what do you do here at Liger?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm sales executive. So I'm client facing a lot of times with prospects on the onboarding process side. So trying to get them to understand that marketing is a necessity and that they need it.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. And you started that job when we were in the depths of the time that we will not speak of.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is we're starting to see things kind of warm up a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And as you're having conversations with clients about potentially, starting their marketing campaigns or moving them forward,
right?
Like, so what are the things you were hearing, and kind of what are the things you're hearing now?
Right. Yeah, so I mean, some of the things that I was hearing in the times that we won't speak about is we don't have the money to put towards it. We don't want to pay for that expense, right? And so now things are on an upward trend. Business is starting to come back. People are going outside. We're not hiding behind a mask as much anymore,
right?
And but the conversation is still the same. It's still, well, this is an expense and I'm making money now, but I don't want to pay towards that expense. And so in my conversations, it's trying to twist that conversation of marketing is not an expense, it is an investment.
Ah, nice. Yeah, because we talk about the concept of looking at your marketing more like a portfolio.
Sure.
And which is interesting because many times when you buy something in a business, you set it and forget it.
Right.
So like if we have Zoom subscriptions and we have Slack and Teamwork and all these other kind of things. And that's something that we've purchased and we've made this investment and we expect it to be a certain amount every month. And we're really not going to change it,
right?
Unless we up a license or something else. But with marketing, it's an investment. It truly is an investment.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times executives have financials on their mind, right? I put $1 here and it turns into $5 here, or I put in $1 here and it turns into $10 here. With marketing, right, I'm going to put in $1 today. I'm not going to expect to see the return tomorrow. It may be 3 months, it may be 6 months before I see that ROI come back. And so,
but Dakota, I thought you were going to sell me a viral marketing campaign and that we were going to have just millions of customers tomorrow.
Well, sure, yeah, I'd love to be a unicorn, but
But they don't exist.
But they don't exist. That's right.
Check out waronunicorns.com.
Yeah, and so a lot of times it's managing expectations, and so when I close a deal, I'm not so much celebrating I closed a deal, rather that I just opened a new relationship, and so changing the idea of I'm here to help you. I'm not just trying to sell you the next iPhone or the next thing that's going to change a year down the road. This is an ongoing process. This is an engine that we've got to build together, but I need you to buy in to the fact that you have a car and you need an engine.
Yeah. So the close of the sale is not the end; it's the start.
That's right.
Specifically for this, we're not transactional in any way. You're not buying a thing and driving off the lot in the new car.
That's right.
Maybe that would be easier.
Yeah.
Dakota and I quit.
Yeah.
We're going to start selling cars.
We're car salesmen now.
Because truly, you don't go back to that salesperson until you're ready to trade again. You end up at the service department, and here, we're establishing this relationship. We've got to make an investment over time, figure out where the right ways and what the right things are to spend the money on. And a frustration I run into, because I end up in some of these sales calls with you, is the thought of marketing as that additional thing. It's like I kid and say it's the first thing people cut.
Yeah.
It's the last thing they add, first thing they cut. Now, people out there who are selling training will tell you it's training. The training is the first thing they cut and the last thing they add, which is probably true. But to view it as an expense, you've already put it into a negative light.
Right.
Yeah. And so you and I were talking about the concept of, so yeah, a little personal question. So you invest in the stock market at all?
I've got a few things here and there.
You did the GameStop thing.
I did not do the GameStop thing. I was not that smart.
And so,
or that dumb.
Or dumb, yeah.
Yeah.
Whichever way.
You look at
right.
It, yeah.
Well, what's interesting about GameStop, and those of you that have been under a rock for the past few months, GameStop, had this big run because some people on Reddit, made it go viral. And so people went out and bought a bunch of GameStop. And so you did not want to buy or invest in GameStop on the way up.
Right.
Like you didn't want to be the person who bought it at, I think it got to 400, 500, thanks Isaac, something like that.
Right.
I didn't invest in GameStop. I'm still sitting here. So anyway, and you didn't want to be the person who bought it at 400 to 500. You wanted to buy it like $2 or when they thought it was about to go out of business, right?
Right.
And so the mentality in marketing is similar in the fact that, people think that they for some reason don't want to make the investment on the upswing. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't understand it, right? Because sales and marketing, while they're separate, they're looked at as the same thing.
Yeah.
Marketing fuels the sales, which then fuels the rest of the company. And so when you have that mindset of, well, I don't need to do it now because sales are good. Well, that's like saying, well, I've got a half a tank of gas, so I can make the rest of the trip. But eventually, you're going to have to go get some more gas.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to realize that when your tank is empty, right? Go ahead and fill up the other
Dakota
half.
may have been on a couple trips with me. So yeah, I have an RV, and my wife says that like when we're driving around town, I'm always keeping the tank really full. And when we're in the RV, I get it down to like 2 miles. Like, we're in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, I know, but I want the fullest tank possible. But yeah, so I follow that mindset sometimes. But yeah, no, you don't want to run out. You want to make sure that you continue to get leads in. It's better to invest at the point that you're sort of on the way up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because it is an investment, and thinking of it in that light is you don't invest when you don't have any money.
Right. No, you pay for like bread and stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you're just trying to survive. But if you have the money to invest, it is smart to invest it. And so when business is good, that's the best time to really throw some dollars at your marketing.
Yeah, and you can do some fun things at that point. I mean, that's the thing about marketing is that it's meant to be experimental, and really the thing about business in general, which is the one, if anybody people ask me about running businesses and taking businesses through periods of time like the one we just went through, you literally have to do the exact opposite of what you think you should be doing.
How do you mean?
The exact opposite. So if you think business is good, you're like, oh, well, I don't need to go get marketing because I have enough customers. No, you absolutely have to go get marketing.
Yeah.
Or if the market starts to tank, like we rented office space.
Yeah.
In the middle. I took the lease in November.
Right.
And the guy was sitting on his phone, I think playing like
Tetris.
or something, right? And I had the lease and the check, and I handed it to the guy. I'm like, "Hey, here's a lease for space." And I thought he was gonna fall, like pass out.
Wow.
He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're leasing space. I mean, now's the time to do it. Like, why would you do it when rates go up and things are kind of back to it?" So when you hear that objection, so when you're talking kind of, because this is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives, what are some of the ways? What are some of your ways of kind of getting around that objection?
Yeah. So, and a lot of times it's difficult on the front end, right? Because I'm talking to a C-suite executive and they see this young kid with long hair and they're like, well, what the heck does he know, right? But it's when you put yourself in a mindset of being a business owner, which I have been before in a sense, is understanding, you are there to provide value for the rest of your employees, right? And so sometimes when I'm in that conversation, it's explaining it in a way that makes sense to them in their position. And so, for instance, you, Eric, are in a CEO position, and you want to provide value to not only the clients, but your employees, right? And so how do you do that? It's by bringing in more sales, bringing in more business. Well, how do you bring in more business? How do you bring in more sales? Well, it starts with marketing. It starts with awareness. It starts with branding. It starts with getting people to understand and know who you are, what you do, why you do it, and why I should have you guys do it for me.
Yeah. And marketing makes it easier. Like if your salespeople if they're struggling making a sale, marketing makes their sales job easier.
That's right.
Now they may not admit that.
Yeah. I didn't just say that.
No, they may not admit that. The salespeople will say, they're like, those marketing people,
Right.
what are they doing for me? Because it is difficult. It is very difficult to relate, unless you're on a transactional business, the marketing thing to the end sale.
Right.
Like, this is what caused us to make the sale, because you've got so many touch points you have to fit along the path. How many touch points?
5 to 7.
Oh, that's in the sales process. 21 before that.
Oh, 21 times. Yes. Right.
Awareness.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm still stuck in sales.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
Getting into the sales position, what are some things that you've learned as it relates to your relationship with marketing? Like, have you learned a delineation that you didn't expect?
So, yeah, I would say so. And this is interesting, just kind of how they both correlate, because sales and marketing are different, but they do work very closely together. To me, the marketing, just in my own personal experience over the last 6-8 months, is it helps start the conversation, right? So, for instance, when I get on a phone and I cold call someone, the question is, hey, I'm from Liger Partners. Does that name sound familiar? And a lot of times they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And sometimes they say yes. And when they say yes, that means the marketing has already worked, and I don't have to go through my spiel of explaining who I am and why I'm calling you. Right. But then on the other side of it is I can say, oh, well, that's, I'll have to get on the marketing team for that. Which then they laugh, because I'm like, which is exactly what I'm here to talk to you about.
Well, it does give you a good hook. Yeah, because I've heard them talk about that before. We work with Sales Arbiter, who does sales training, and they say, if you haven't heard of it, then you go tell your marketing person. But you can use that as a hook to say, hey, that's why I'm here.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
And so it's the conversation starter, right? And they know who you are, and then you bring them into the space of, okay, now what are we going to talk about? What are the issues that you're having? Where are the gaps that need to be filled in a marketing sense? Right? There are all kinds of gaps in businesses that need to be filled, but as far as marketing goes, where's the gap that you're seeing that's needing to be filled, and what are the gaps that I'm seeing? Just looking from the outside in, and figuring out what's the best way to get that filled.
Nice. Okay. Well, we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to dig into a little bit about who Dakota Ward is. We're going to get a little personal.
Yeah. We'll see.
We are. I'm going to find out, like what brought you into marketing, why you decided this was if you just fell into it sometime or whatever. But anyway, you're listening to The Claw. It's Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist with Liger Partners, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Thanks so much for watching The Claw podcast. We'll be back after this short break.
used to be that guy. You know, the one who spends his days just eating his feelings, living in his parents' basement. It all changed when I received an invitation from the love of my life. Because of all the junk food and laziness, I had outgrown my entire wardrobe. I knew I had to completely transform my body by the end of the week. Otherwise, I'd lose my beautiful mare. That's when I created my Unicorn Magic workout system. This system gives your muscles the boost they need to kick into overdrive and get you the results you want, immediately and effortlessly. By the time I went out on my date, using a magical combination, I didn't even recognize my own body, and neither will you. I personally guarantee you will see results after one workout with no risk to me. My customers agree. No other exercise program works faster or more effectively. In fact, out of 100 users, 100% of them said this is the most effective workout program they have ever used. Let's just say I got my gorgeous mare. And if you want yours, you need the Unicorn Magic workout system. So don't be that guy. Sign up for Unicorn Magic today.
Have you or a loved one been injured by a unicorn? Unicorn Magic will not help you get fit in a week, and it won't get you millions of new customers in a week either. If you've experienced any of these symptoms, you may have been affected by a unicorn marketing agency. If you need impactful marketing crafted to last, call Liger today. We fight these grandiose and absurd unicorn promises deadly to your marketing strategy and bring you long-lasting success. We guarantee you won't get overnight results. Reclaim your life and reclaim your marketing. Go online now at waronunicorns.com or give us a call at 404-832-5143. Again, the number is 404-832-5143.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw on Liger Partners Podcast Network. This is the podcast for marketing C-suite executives, which is a mouthful, I have to say. It's a lot of words. I'm talking today with Dakota Ward. Dakota is an account executive. You and Courtney use, what do you call yourselves?
A wizard of possibility.
A wizard of possibilities. I like it.
Right.
And so talk to me a little bit about why did you get into marketing?
Sure. Yeah.
Because this was an accident for me.
Yeah.
Like, this is an accidental company. It's like the uh-oh baby late in life, like that type of thing. So how did you end up in marketing?
So I feel like I want
the real story.
You want the real story?
The real story.
The real story. All right. I'll be very honest.
Okay.
I also tripped and fell into marketing.
Okay.
I took business administration and had a focus in marketing while I was in school, right? And so I did not know necessarily what I wanted to do with that. I thought I was going to own a business and conquer the world, right? I may still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're young.
But I took over, my dad had a cigar business. And so I took over that. And what I found in running the business and learning what a P&L is, we talked about that the other day, is, some business owners don't even know how to do that, right? And so it's not a hard concept. But learning all of these little things and what does it take to be a business owner and what does it take to do your own marketing when you're a one-person show, I found that was where I got the most enjoyment out of that job. It wasn't necessarily standing behind the counter and telling somebody about a historical figure that was on a cigar, which that's fun and I love teaching. It was more interesting to me, the creative aspect. And so I come from a family of creatives. Both of my parents are architects. And so their head is 95% of the times up in the clouds. And then, the other 5% is they're telling us to, do the dishes or whatever, right? And so my older sister is a nurse. And so she is helping recreate bodies in the operational room. My little sister is in social work, so she's recreating. She's using her creative mind to recreate homes for foster care children. And then my brother literally creates stuff with his hands. He's a woodworker.
Oh, wow.
And so it's almost just a natural inclination for me to fall into something creative. I'm a people person, so I like to be in front of people and talk to people. So that's how I kind of fell into the sales side. But the marketing side allows the stimulation of my creative brain to have some sort of a vice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You know, I think you go to school to learn not what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I went to school thinking that I wanted to be a computer programmer.
Mhm.
Would be the most miserable computer programmer on the face of the planet.
Mm.
Terrible. And I learned it as I was taking the first computer programming classes.
Yeah.
Back then it was called computer science. I don't know what they call them
They
nowadays.
still called it computer
Okay,
science.
there
yeah.
you go. And realized very soon in it, I was like, I do not want to do this for a living. And so I've never programmed a computer in my entire life, but I learned enough about how that works to then be the geek who can dress up and take places. You know, I can talk computer, I
Right.
you know, run development shops, that type of thing, and been able with marketing to kind of connect it into technology. So finding those, I mean, I think school is as much about learning
Yeah.
what you don't want to do, right?
It's similar to a sales process. You're disqualifying everything else that you
Yeah.
don't want.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing. I thought I wanted to be a history teacher and a basketball coach, right? Your stereotypical history teacher that's like more interested in, you know, what Johnny's doing on the football field or, you know, how many times he's hitting a three-pointer. And so I went to one of my brother's basketball games back in high school. It's probably second year of college. And I came there and I sat down next to my parents and no context at all. I looked at my dad and I was like, I can't do this. And he's like, what do you mean you can't do this? It's a basketball game. Just sit there and watch it. And I was like, no. I can't do this. I
Yeah.
can't teach. I don't want to coach. I don't want to do this. And just had this mini panic attack. And I don't normally panic, but there was, what do I do now? And he
Right.
looked at me and he goes, don't do it.
Yeah.
Change your major.
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so switched gears after 2.5 years thinking I was going to go into secondary education. Went more business route and changed, you know, the course of the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and interestingly, you're talking about teaching because marketing is one of the more complex things that you have to talk to someone about. You know, if I'm doing creative accounting, you should fire me, right? Like if
Sure.
your P&Ls and balance sheets, they should pretty much be done in a certain way. And human resources has kind of this staid way of doing things. Marketing is this thing that changes often, and you're continually teaching people what it is and what's new, and
Right.
they've been taught something maybe 5 years ago that they think is still valid,
Mm-hmm.
and you're no, sorry, that's not how this works anymore. So you get to get that outlet without necessarily having to deal with OPK.
Right. Yeah. And
Do you know what OPK is?
I don't.
Other people's kids.
Other people's kids. That is great. Yes. Because that was half of it was,
Yeah,
I don't
other
wanna-
people's
yeah,
kids.
I don't want to deal with these little brats because I'm not their parent and they're not going to listen to me anyways.
Right. You and me, same person.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought at one point I'd be a teacher too, and I was like, nah, that's not my. I could probably teach college. I think I could teach college, but
Yeah. Because they want to learn.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So secondary ed, high school, and I was the same way. I was like, I don't care what he's saying. I just want to, you know,
do my thing.
do my thing, mess with the friend across the room, or try and flirt with a girl that I think is pretty sitting next to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly that you talk about, you know, this being a creative outlet. What I like about the work we do and the work that I've always done is I feel like almost feel like I'm a real estate agent for digital property.
Okay.
Real estate agent for digital property, or no, agent's not a good like a flipper, like a
Okay.
house flipper for
Okay. Yeah. That
online
makes sense.
properties. And the ring I wear is my grandfather. So my grandfather was a serial entrepreneur, and he was in real estate. So he bought and sold property, and he, you know, owned a couple of businesses that he went into and kind of, you know, flipped them from doing well to, or sorry, they were not doing well to making them do well.
Right.
And that's what we do. We look at companies and we look at their digital properties and we tell them, you know, you're doing all the wrong stuff in social media and your SEO is wrong and you really need to make sure your content. So we do the same evaluation of each of these companies that we work with. And then the cool thing about it is then we get to get in there and fix it.
Right.
Like fix the plumbing and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and it also kind of stems because I do enjoy teaching. It wasn't like I didn't want to teach anymore. And so I still get that little bit of satisfaction in teaching some of these prospects and clients of, look, and I'm just going to stick with the car analogy today, but you know, you've got the tires, you've got the doors, and you've got the engine, but they're all just sitting there on the ground. You're not doing anything with them. So
Yeah.
let's put it together in a cohesive, comprehensive strategy and then consistently push it down the road.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that kind of concept of and using analogies like those are a great way to get someone, because you got to get them outside that context. There's so many buzzwords and
Right.
marketing. I mean, even us inside the layer, we sit and say, "What did you just say? Is this what this means?" It's like, yeah, no, that's the same thing. We're just calling it something different. And what's fun too is that we talk about the difference between sales and marketing. In most cases, is that sales is typically tell content, so I'm telling you something, and marketers like to teach.
Right.
We like to teach people how things work, and then if you're in the sales role, you have to figure out how to then switch it so you can
How to do both.
close them,
It's
actually
like-
make some money off of it.
Right. I'm teaching you all this stuff about marketing, but I'm telling you that you need it.
Yeah. And so as you're working with prospects and customers, I mean, is there a resource that you wish that they had looked at before they talked to you, one that you'd like to send them? Like, what is it, what do you wish people maybe knew before or while they're having a conversation with you about marketing?
Something that I wish that they knew. Yeah. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier is the expectations. And so this is a campaign which we're running, is helping them understand that this is not a quick fix. And so if you're in a fire drill scenario, you're probably going to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Right. And so helping them understand from the get-go that this is a long-term investment, and it's going to take a minute before you see the results, but those results are coming. So because what that does for me is it helps me better explain that. What it does for the rest of everybody else behind the scenes after I finish what I'm doing and pass along the relationship is they don't feel the pressure from the client saying, okay, well, we've been doing this stuff for a month now. How come I don't have 100 more sales?
Right.
Right. And so then they have to re-explain what I either poorly explained or didn't explain well enough to where they understood it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is one of the biggest challenges we have. We don't want an emergency marketing deal. Don't come to us and say, I need to sell 1,000 of these things tomorrow, because
Right.
we're going to tell you we need to get in a time machine and go back about 6 months.
Right.
3 at the least. And certainly don't bring us an event that you need to promote 2 weeks from now. That's just not gonna work. So yeah, marketing is a long play. If you even think about the 21 times that you have to be in front of somebody, you can't do 21 times in 2 days and make the number work. It's got to be over time. It's a spread.
Right. And even in a viral video, right? I got 2 million views. Well, great. You just touched 2 million people one time.
Right. You touched them one time, and there is such thing as the one-hit wonder.
Right.
The person they played right as we were coming on, they're one-hit wonder, right?
Yeah. One hit wonder? Yes. What's her name? How do you pronounce it again? She's got brown hair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, because we were in a group, you and I went to a group the other day we won't talk about, that everybody wanted to go viral. And it's like, yeah, but if you've got the one thing and you only did the one thing and you don't have anything historically different or like there's nothing else there, you were lucky once. Like everybody's lucky once.
Right.
And there's no substance to keep the person over the long term.
Well, and that's the other part about it is when you're being consistent, right? All that content is there. It may be a viral thing that gets you the attention, but then what happens after the attention?
Yeah.
If you have no content behind it, they're like, oh, wow, that was a cool video. Scroll to the next one.
Yeah, no reason. And you're just there was a person I saw one time that did this thing, is what you tell somebody.
Yeah.
Like you don't know who it is. You
Yeah.
have no idea. But if they've got other content available, other ways of interacting and being educated, then that's how you're establishing that name. So it's that kind of consistency over time.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, well, it was fun talking with you today.
It was.
I love to have Ligers in the podcast studio. I don't get to do that often. Sometimes
and I'm rarely on this side of the table, so it's new for me too.
I know. Well, I only like this side because there's new cameras and things. This is my good side. So
That's right.
Yeah. So you've been listening to The Claw. I've been talking today with Dakota Ward. He is a sales executive with Liger Partners on the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. Make sure and tune in next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Claw podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And if you or someone you know wants to make an appearance on this show, email us at yourbestie@ligerpartners.com.